those moments. Those were some of the highlights, scoring touchdowns at Arrowhead Stadium.
JJ, you made a great catch, speaking of fans here, in the playoffs against Rod Woodson. A hell of a catch. It's on everybody's highlight reel, the diving catch where you made that move on Rod Woodson. You came to section 110 and you gave that football to a lovely lady 3 rows in front of myself. And that speaks
highly. You are ridiculous, Shaggy. You are ridiculous. I love it. I'm with it.
But that just speaks highly of JJ. You know, he just said he wants to celebrate with the fans. Let me tell you, I was a season ticket holder from 1991 through 2011, and I sat in 110, row 4, watching JJ Birden put on a show. I know you've talked about it before, but please tell the viewers out here about that move you made on Hall of Fame cornerback Rod Woodson.
Yeah, so basically, you know, Joe Pendry, or no, that wasn't Pendry.
It was Paul Hackett.
Paul Hackett. So they put in a play for me. It was a sluggo route. Sluggo is a slant and go. Because through film study, we would see that Rod Woodson, as great as he was, which he was, he had a tendency of biting on double moves. So if you ran a slant and go, a hook and go, and out and up, he would bite on that move. And so we set it up that I was going to run a sluggo route once we got inside the 40 against Rod Woodson. So I can remember the play. So I don't know if it's third down or second. I think it was first down. So we're on about the 35, and Montana said, okay, he gives us 2 plays in the huddle. He said, this is the first play, and then the second play, JJ, we're running the sluggo route. Which side do you want to be on? I said, I want to be on the right side. That's for Rod. He says, okay. So we run the first play, and Montana gets hurt. And because he gets hurt, he's on the ground long. They call timeout. He jumps up. He says, I'm okay. And the ref's like, nope, you got to go sit out 1 play. We call a timeout. So I'm like, dang, we're not going to run the sluggo route. And then here comes Dave Craig. He looks right at me. We're running it, you know. So we get up. He calls the play. Rod's inside. I run the route. I take 2 steps up. I go inside. And as soon as I see Rod bite, I say to myself, got him. And I just plant, go outside. Dave kind of makes it kind of a tough catch, and I have to dive for it. But it was premeditated. That game, I said, if I score a touchdown, I'm giving it to someone in the stands because I've never done that. And it just so happens I run over there and I see her name is Gloria. I still know her to this day.
Amen.
That's what's up. Wow.
That was a playoff catch. That was a playoff catch. It was a hell of a catch.
Yeah, and you know what, guys? You don't realize it how today I think about that, man. Rod Woodson was like one of the greatest defensive backs of all time. You know, and then you start realizing, like, hey, I guess that play was pretty good, you know?
Yeah.
JJ.
The league. Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs were your 3rd team after you went through Cleveland and Dallas. When you joined the Chiefs, as a rookie, you said you leaned on, from what I've noticed on your social media statuses or your posts, that you leaned on Stephon Page to really mentor you as a wide receiver. You know, as a fan, we looked at it when JJ Birden came in 1990. It looked like he was replacing Naz Worthen. So my point to that was Stephon Page the mentor you were looking for, or the mentor that you really helped you? And did you feel like you had to mentor Lake Dawson and Chris Penn when they were both 3rd-round draft picks in 1994?
Yeah, I learned quickly when I got to Cleveland. One of the veterans told me, they said, hey, rookie, do whatever you can to learn from the veterans. So Cleveland, it was Webster Slaughter and Brian Brennan. Then I went to Dallas. Irving was hurt. It was all younger guys. But when I got to Kansas City, yes, it was Stephon Page and Emil Harry too. Those were the 2 that really kind of taught me some things that helped me kind of move the needle a little quicker. And I always was impressed with their willingness to give and to share, so that when I became the guy later on, when Chris Penn came in and Lake Dawson came in, I was more than happy to mentor and coach them as well. And I'll tell you, Shane, one of the coolest things was that I didn't realize this, but when I saw Chris Penn at training camp last week, that's the first thing he said to me. He says, man, I never forgot how much you helped me when I was a rookie. And it says, I just never got a chance to thank you for that. And that meant a lot because, you know, I think you should pay it forward, you know, because someone helped me during my journey of success, why wouldn't I want to help someone else?
I want to touch on what we've seen with Eric Bieniemy getting some ridicule about, there hasn't been names of these players mentioned, but obviously there's been some tough criticism from players in Washington of Eric Bieniemy being too hard on his offense. Their offensive players went to Ron Rivera and asked Ron Rivera if he would tone it down. When you see these players in this generation I don't want to say weak, because they're playing a game that I'm not playing right now. Does it disappoint you on how these players act now? Or do you think that's just the sign of the times where the NFL had to come to a way to come safer? How do you look at that, JJ?
Oh man, to be honest, when I first saw that this morning, I just went, oh my goodness, you're kidding me. Are you serious? The players went and complained to the coach about the intensity of Bieniemy. I realize the game is different in so many ways today. And right away, I thought that if they're complaining about that, they would have never survived any of our training camps from back in the day, But that's part of the game. When you mess up, the coach is going to get on you. You can't take it personal. But the best way to combat that is do your job. Don't mess up. Know what you got to do, because I played with many coaches who were intense like that, and they'd come at you, but I made sure I did my job so they didn't have to do that to me very often.
To replace you, they never got anybody fast. Going into that 95 season, it was just like, okay, who's going to replace
Slaughter?
JJ
Was like 35 years old. Yeah.
I think that just from my observation, it seemed like they wanted the big physical West Coast wide receivers. They even picked up Eric Martin in 1994. JJ could probably talk about that. Would you agree with that, JJ? About in that time, they wanted the big blocking downfield wide receivers. Is that what they were looking for?
They always did, but Shane, they always still wanted a smaller receiver in there somewhere. But yeah, you could tell they were gravitating towards bigger receivers. Even while I was there was always a big receiver they brought in to try to take my job. I used to have this comic strip in my locker that had it was a 100-meter race, and it was like the cheetah, it was a human, it was a rabbit, it was a cat. And the cheetah would say, well, I guess I have to prove myself again. And that's how I felt every year, because they would bring these tall receivers, these Jerry Rice clones in to try to take my job. But it made me play better, But as you said, when I left, they kept continuing to bring in those types of receivers.
We have a question here. Lisa Perry Wilson. Did you know the Hunt? Obviously Lamar, I'm sure Clark was around, but talk about everyone talks so glowing. They love Lamar Hunt and just the person he was.
Yeah, I did know the Hunts. Lamar Hunt, just, man, great guy. Very quiet. He was a quiet leader. You didn't see him. Yeah, you didn't see him a lot. He wasn't real talkative, but when you had a chance to talk to him, you knew he was in charge. And wife, same thing, pleasant woman. And then Clark. I mean, I remember Clark definitely. I think Clark was playing soccer, at North, one of the high schools out there, and he would come to practice all the time. But it is really cool to see, and that Clark has really taken what his father established and continued to grow the legacy and make it even better and better. It's amazing to witness.